Way back in 2005, two brothers set off on a road trip that would save the world and change television.
Daniel and Billy Baldwin.
That's a different road trip. For 15 seasons and 327 episodes, Supernatural took audiences on a wild ride of family, fate, and faith with a rocking soundtrack and a seriously cool car.
But that was then, Bobo, and this is now. And yes, the show has quote-unquote ended, but we're not quite done with the journey.
No, we're not.
And that's why we're watching it all over again, or for Rob and me, for the first time,
That's right.
diving deep into every episode of Supernatural with the fine folks who made it. And we're taking you along for the ride.
Whether you like it or not. I'm Rob Benedict. I played Chuck Shirley, a.k.a. God.
Spoiler!
Yeah, it is a bit of a spoiler, but hey, spoilers are fair game here.
Fine. And I'm Richard Speight Jr., and I played the Trickster, also known as the Archangel Gabriel, and I did a little bit of Loki work in there.
Okay, you know what? We're running out of time.
Okay, well, we'll be talking about the entire series, so whatever we say, you've been warned.
So buckle up and settle in.
Because this, my friend, is Supernatural, then and now.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Benedict.
I'm Richard Speight.
And we're here to talk about episode 14 of Supernatural.
That's in season 1, Rob, for those keeping track at home.
Yeah, we're still in season 1. This episode is called Nightmare.
Oh my gosh. Already, I'm scared.
Me too. Just not right now, I guess.
Yeah, this is good. I'm unsettled.
Yeah, this is an interesting episode. It begins with Sam has a premonition.
Right.
Of a man being killed.
Something going on in that noodle of his.
That's right. But from what the boys can tell, it doesn't seem to be supernatural.
Although premonitions aren't exactly normal.
That's true. And this is Supernatural, so I would say anything is supernatural.
Yeah, for them to dismiss the supernatural fact is to really ignore the title card.
Sam and Dean question Max, the son of the murdered man, but don't suspect anything.
No, why would they? He's a kid.
Yeah, he's just a kid. Although he's probably about late 20s.
Whatever. 20s are kids too.
However, soon the boy's uncle dies. Sam and Dean dig deeper and find out that Max was being abused by his father and his uncle.
Oh man, that's the 1-2 punch of getting punched 1 and 2.
Yeah, Max had it real rough. And,
yeah, dude.
And that the mom is actually a stepmom and she never did anything.
Nothing wrong with stepmoms, but if you're, she didn't really help out.
Right. To say Max had a chip on his shoulder would be an understatement, right?
Correct.
Max has abilities, just like Sam.
I mean, he has like fantastic hair and is creepily tall.
That's right, and smells good. But his are further developed than Sam's. He can control objects with his mind.
Oh, man.
He's using his telekinesis to murder the people that abused him. His next target is his stepmother.
Wait a minute. I didn't think she abused him.
She just did nothing. She did nothing. She stood around and did nothing while the others did the bad stuff.
Oh, wow.
After tense showdowns with floating knives and hovering guns, Sam and Dean are able to prevent the murder of the stepmother, but aren't able to save Max, who takes his own life.
I actually saw the floating knives open up for the hovering guns.
How were they?
At a festival. They're great.
Yeah.
Both really good.
No, I heard. I'm a big fan of their older stuff. So this episode.
Oh, man.
It's very emotional.
Look, I see Robbie's taking it seriously because he's getting out his notes.
Getting the notes out.
Robbie takes notes, everybody, and Richie just does it from memory.
Right. There's a lot of great stuff in this episode.
So much great stuff.
So the one thing that happened in this episode that I think's the elephant in the room here is that Sam's got superpowers.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
No. I mean, he's had visions and dreams and stuff.
I don't remember them coming with crippling headaches.
That's true. And right now he's seeing things before they happen.
And not with his own mom or dad.
Correct.
Or Dean, like
right.
Somebody else's family.
Right. Not only that, but we find when he's locked in the closet that he's got telekinesis. If he gets super, super angry or upset, he can move something out of the way.
At least he can move an armoire.
Yeah. I wish I'd known that when I came into the show in season 4.
I'll tell you what, next time I move house, guess who I'm calling over to move my armoire?
That's true. So that we find out. I thought that was a big sort of, plot point that we found out in this episode.
Yeah, that was crazy. Really cool, though.
Yeah.
But this is a great episode.
Yeah.
Let's just get to the meat of this whole thing. It's a really good episode of Supernatural.
It's terrific.
It's not only is it a great story for Sam's character and his development and what's going on with him in terms of this sort of extra level of abilities or whatever you would call it that he has that we discover.
Right.
But also just the acting in the show is great.
Yeah.
The guy who plays
Max
is great.
Yeah. Every episode is
Brendan Fletcher. And I looked up his name here. He played. And then the stepmom was great. She has a great scene at the end. Crying to the cop, and she's like on fire. It's a really good episode.
Yeah. And then there's the real tense moment where Dean gets shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
They did a really good job. Phil did a really good job. The writers did a really good job kind of playing with what we're seeing. Are we seeing what's going on in the present, or are you seeing a flash forward to what might happen if something doesn't intercede?
Exactly.
And that was one of those moments where I thought we were watching the real moment, and then Jensen got shot. I'm like, oh,
Right.
Oh, crazy.
Right. I know. And and again, I know this show goes on for 15 seasons. I know for a fact Dean makes it to the end or nearly there.
Well, never mind, everybody. Thank you for listening. Spoiler alert, show ruined, season pointless.
Well, my point is, I know that, and yet every time something happens where, Dean is shot or electrocuted or whatever it is, I freak out.
You die a little inside.
I think, holy crap, Dean can't die.
Which is why you then come to the podcast and ruin it for everybody.
Well, I didn't ruin it. And if you want to cut that out, you can.
No, we're not going to cut it out. We're not going to cut it out because we're not that show. We warned people there'd be spoilers. I just didn't know there'd be this level of spoiler.
Well, if you go to Supernatural on the IMDb, you'll see that Jensen Ackles acts through every episode.
Not everybody has access to the web like you, moneybags.
Really? Is that expensive now? I didn't realize that was just the elite.
Whatever.
Something for the elite. Well, I've got lots of questions, and I think I'm going to save them for our guests today because most of mine are just director and shot related.
Yeah, man. I mean, Phil crushed it, but he always does. I mean, he's one of the best.
He does. Well, so I think 2 full beards.
Oh, 2 very full beards.
We're giving this episode 2 very full beards.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I trimmed mine.
Oh, I didn't. Well, it's big.
Well,
it's a big beard.
It was bigger.
Yeah. No, it's nice.
Thanks.
It's great.
Anyway, 2 full beards.
Yeah.
So, Robbie, I know you got a ton of questions. Guess what? You got the right guy here to answer them.
Yeah.
Because our guest is Phil Sgriccia.
That's right. Phil directed 45 episodes of Supernatural.
Yes, he did.
Now,
second most, only to Bob Singer.
Yeah. He now, of course, is on The Boys.
Did you know he directed an episode of Xena, Warrior Princess?
You know what? I actually did not know that. Did you?
I did and I didn't.
Okay. Well,
I'm not even sure what that means.
It's very non-committal.
Well, I feel like I knew it, but I don't remember it.
Well, that won't pass in a court of law.
Answer, non-answer.
Nevertheless, please welcome Phil Sgriccia. We are pleased to have with us today the director of this episode.
Returning guest.
Yeah, that's right. A recurring guest on our podcast, Mr. Phil Sgriccia.
You promised some money on this side
I know.
time.
We're going to get you.
We brought snacks. Phil, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me,
Phil,
guys.
we really love this episode. This is a great episode.
We got to review this before you walked in the room, so we were honest. Right now we'd have to lie because you're sitting here.
Does it have beards?
2 full beards.
2 full beards.
Really? Okay.
2 full beards.
Yeah. Personally, I thought there were some really great shots in it. There's a shot at the beginning of the light becoming the car.
Yeah, I was in my, I don't know what phase that was when I'm directing. It was like, how can we transition into things? And
but it's well thought out. It's appreciated.
Yeah.
When you watch that, you're like, oh, okay, this is quality stuff. And then the whole race up the staircase, I thought that was really cool. Action shot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think Phil, your episodes always are cinematic. I mean, I've watched a lot of Phil Sgriccia work, and not just that you're on a fancy new, cable show. I mean, in the even early days Supernatural, that is your style. And I'm curious, is that a cinematic style that you just have, or is that from years of being an editor that you appreciate transitions? What do you think the origin of that is?
Boy. I was a projectionist in high school. I watched a lot of movies, and I don't know if that sunk in or became part of my background in my head, but I think I started thinking more visually. I was always better at pictures than words, I guess, more comfortable with it or something. Just I was a cameraman for a number of years after college. I was doing a lot of documentaries. But then editing, I fell in love with that. I think both of them come into play all the time in my work. So I try to make it interesting. You try not to do the basic shot. You try and put something that means something within the story. It's always story-driven or character-driven. There's been a couple times when you do some fancy shot and then it gets cut out by the powers that be, and you're like, oh, dagger in my heart. But it didn't help the story, so you move on.
By the way, just for the people listening at home, sometimes the power that be for me was Phil.
Right.
cutting out my shot.
Well, I learned from Mr. Singer and Mr. Kripke and Mr. Manners that if it wasn't helping the story, it's not worthy of staying in. You got to be, cruel to the kids, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you study in college?
Television, film, radio. I was at Central Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
In the mid-'70s.
Okay.
That's how old. And I ended up top of the class, and I ran a TV station.
Okay.
A cable TV station at the college. I was the executive producer guy that ran it
That's
for
awesome.
the last year. Yeah, I just
You knew it at an early age. This is the direction you wanted to go.
yeah, I actually ran a cable station in high school. With
Wow,
with a
man.
little tiny school in northern Michigan. It was all about teachers. My English teacher, Jerry Hockstead, who just passed away, was a mentor, and he kicked out a wall in a janitor's closet and put in the slanted glass and got an old mixing board from a radio station, and we started doing radio in high school.
Wow.
It's awesome.
And then by the time I was ready to graduate, we had shifted up to cable TV, and I actually edited my first commercials on half-inch black and white reel-to-reel videotape.
Wow.
We had two machines, so I realized you recorded all your footage, and then you played back, and then you paused on the second machine. You recorded that, and then you paused it, went to the next shot, and then hit record again, and they would bind together.
Yeah.
So that's how I figured out how editing works very young.
Yeah.
And then also watching the movies at the projectionist in this little theater, single screen. I had to change every 20 minutes, the reels. And the guy who owned the theater still owns it today. He was a school teacher too. So I owe a lot to a couple of school teachers.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
And you're from Michigan. So
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah.
so the show, this episode
Takes place in Michigan.
Yeah.
There's a big hole though in this one. If you're watching it on, because of the music rights thing,
Yeah.
there were two beautiful Bob Seger songs in the
really?
show that were not
Oh, because of the Netflix.
because of the Netflix thing.
Well, we didn't.
the
So we
streaming.
didn't hear those.
It was 2+2 was the guy driving in, and then a song called Lucifer that Bob Seger did early on. This is way before Silver Bullet Band and all
Okay.
that. Seeger was always the guy that everybody saw at their graduation prom dance or whatever. He was that guy in the 60s and in the early 70s that if you were in Detroit or around Detroit, you always, somehow saw Bob Seger in the Herd or Ted Nugent, the Amboy Dukes, that sort of thing.
So rumor has it that you had your sister send in mugs and baseball caps and things to decorate the set.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
true?
My younger sister, Evie, she sent me a bunch of stuff because I said if we're going to make it Saginaw, and Jerry Wanick, being a Wisco boy, for a cheesehead from Wisconsin, he and I get along really well.
Wisco. I
Wisco.
didn't hear
Took me
that.
a hot second to
Yeah.
pick up Wisco.
Wisco. But, with Jerry being Midwesterner, me being the same, and Kripke, we all kind of dive into those places and the Escanaba Motel and everything about it. Escanaba is a city in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And so you try and populate it all with stuff that just is little Easter eggs for myself, I guess, more than anything.
No, I think it's for everybody. I think that's what makes the show fascinating for people who rewatch it. You know what I mean? Because it might not be something people pick up on the first
Sure.
viewing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the second viewing, the third viewing, and you start to see the layers of things, which is really something that I didn't truly understand until I got on the other side and realized how deep Jerry goes, how deep you guys go, and everybody. Robin Props will bring in hey, this is from season 3. It makes sense here. There'll be some interesting things that happen. That kind of curating the history in real time, I think is really cool.
I think it's part of it is our glee at putting something in past people.
Right.
Hopefully. Or maybe they catch it, maybe they don't. Again, nowadays you can go frame by frame and look at everything. So it's a little different. But, we were shooting on film still then. And it was just kind of let's see what we can do to put some extra. Because it's supposed to take place in Saginaw, it was kind of one of those things where you kind of all right, what else can we put in here? Like coffee cups made sense. The guy wearing the hat, even though the hat was a little small, it made
Where
sense.
was that? Where was that guy with the
When
hat?
they interview the guy out on the street.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got a orange hat in it, and it's a town in northern
Oh.
Michigan.
He's the neighbor, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the
Okay,
neighbor,
here's some trivia. You ready for some trivia?
Okay.
That actor is Fred Keating,
Mm-hmm.
and Fred Keating is Alex Calvert's what's
Jack.
it? Jack's grandfather. Fred Keating played the mom's father. We go meet Jack's grandparents. He's the grandfather.
Yeah, he's the guy
So he comes back in
Comes
season.
in season 14 or something. Yeah.
Wow.
from season 1. There you
Wow.
go.
Crazy.
Yeah, because I
you direct
I
him?
directed it.
Oh, wow.
That's why I was sitting there watching. I'm like, that looks like Fred. And I looked up. I'm like, that's Fred.
That's Fred. Wow. He's just in that one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one scene.
Wow. And where is Saginaw? If I'm holding up my hand.
Right here in the.
Oh, right on the thumb.
Right in the thumb area.
Okay.
There's Saginaw Bay, which is the
This.
where the thumb separates.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saginaw, Flint, Midland is where Dow Chemical has their headquarters. I
Okay.
interned there in college
Huh.
in their video department. Yes, they have a video department.
That's good. Question for you, talking about cinema references and whatnot. There's a line in the script. He's a spoon bender. I assume that's a Matrix reference? I mean, is that what
No, I don't think so. I think it's just Spoonbender was kind of like a sideshow thing, you know. I didn't take it as Matrix myself. I just took it as, you know, the kid at the carnival, you know, they could bend the spoons, or the Great Kreskin or something like that.
Gotcha. Sort of just that gag.
It was just that gag. It wasn't really the Matrix thing.
Yeah, it sounds like that might be a writer question.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about this, but this is the episode where they're dressed as priests, which I've seen on lots of like playback videos. And, you know, it's a funny setup. You know, they have this idea and then the doors open. There they are in their priest outfits. I'm like, oh, this is the one. This is that one. There's an outtake video where they're sleeveless and they introduce themselves as Chippendales dancers. What's the story behind that?
I was always amazed that we actually got episodes done with those two.
I think a lot of people are.
You know how that works. The thing that's fun is that you don't cut. You just let them have their moments,
Yes.
you know? Because if you cut and get angry, and it's like, we got to get going. It just keeps the crew in a better mood. And and I feel like it keeps you moving because it's like everybody's having fun and everybody's got a smile on their face.
Mm-hmm.
So those two, Jared and Jensen, were always ready for silliness. And they would get so hot that they asked, anytime they're wearing an outer coat, they ask for sleeveless because they're hot.
Right.
Sexy hot or
Sexy.
warm hot?
Warm hot, I think.
Both?
You'd have to ask them, but they do it more than, it's not just the priest's outfit. If they took off their coats, it would be no sleeves underneath, and especially with Jared, he's a
sweater.
He's a sauna.
Yeah.
He's a sauna, that boy. So I know there's a couple times when I think there was even one where they were going to come in without any pants on, but I think we kind of moved on.
A lot of disappointed fans.
Priests without pants, yes.
A lot of disappointed guys named Rob Benedict.
New
That's
album.
true. Wait, so then was that a surprise to everybody? They open it up.
Yeah.
The door opens up.
Yeah, I mean, once you go through it, you know, it's like there's a... I know it's in the gag reel, so...
Yeah, so it's in the gag reel for that season.
Yeah.
I think that's been in the gag reel for every... I mean, that plays a lot at conventions.
It does play. That shot plays a lot.
And back then it was fun because we kind of got away from being other things than FBI agents faking it out.
Yeah.
And so this was year one, so all that stuff was fairly new and fun to play. Oh, what if they're priests? What if they're, you know, plumbers and, you know, that sort of thing.
I do love, just because of the truncated TV-ness of it all, how welcoming people are. Like, hello, we're two new priests in town. Well, get on in here.
Yeah.
It's Michigan. Sorry.
Can I go upstairs by myself and peruse your upstairs?
You darn tootin' you can, Father.
Come on, he had to go to the restroom with a laser gizmo.
I was just wondering, who has their only bathroom is upstairs?
Oh, not everybody lives in a castle with a moat,
really.
sire.
Not all of us have 5 bathrooms,
Yeah,
Rob.
geez Louise. A bathroom for every person. That's his motto.
And internet.
Good Lord. Internet in almost every room of your home. Literally, you live a different life.
Just hold that thought. We're coming right back. Thank you for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
You mentioned the gizmo he carries. That gizmo, I don't remember seeing that gizmo before or after.
What is
I
that?
think Kripke was. I think all of us were like, let's try it. And then once it like, and the prop folks were all cool with it. This is going to be so great. And then we had the crossing green things and Kripke looked at dailies. He goes, "Oh, we're never doing that again."
Yeah, dude.
I think and all of us were kind of like, our guys are more analog. They're not digital.
Yeah,
you know?
it looked so. I mean, I don't know if those lasers are real or fake.
Yeah, that was all real.
But
that
they
was a
looked
real
real.
thing.
They looked fake. You know, like they were real to the point of being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
Well, it was one of those crossing them or going straight. And I said, let's cross them. At least that gives you a sense that it's going across the pattern. But that all worked. That was that video screen on it was live. And there was
What was he hoping to find? Like what?
It was looking for anomalies in the, looking for
cool
cold spots. And
right.
things like
It just
that.
would have, okay.
It would have highlighted, you know, an area that, because nothing changed because nothing was there.
Right.
I couldn't help but think that while they're shooting that, if you could hear the production audio, it's like Jensen walking through, and then as the laser hits Brad Creaser's eye, son of a cut.
I don't know. When did Brad come out? Brad wasn't there right at the beginning.
Well, the laser was strong enough to go through walls and hit him in his home.
Yes, it did. But yes, I think it also, I was waiting for somebody to be the lightsaber sound effect as he was doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was only one scene. Thank God we got rid of it. And we realized after that, it was like, don't get too fancy with the props that these guys have. I mean, keep it as simple as possible.
Well, so you say that was practical, but the floating knife and the floating gun obviously were not.
Yeah, we tried a lot of iterations on physical nature of trying to do the gun on an arm with a thing that moved, where it was a real gun on a pedestal, and then we'd paint out the pedestal. But it couldn't move with enough fluidity that we needed. It was always kind of jerky and it kind of bounced.
Yeah.
And it would be so static, too, once
Yeah.
it landed. Like,
Yeah.
it had a floating nature.
Yeah, and there's a lot it had to do. It had to point to Dean, point to her, and then turn on himself. So how is that done? What did you do in the end?
Magic.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
It's like
You've learned a lot today about how movies are
I
made.
can't give away too much. It gives away. No. We had a gun, plastic gun on a bar, and so everybody could get the common viewpoint.
The eye line.
The eye line. And so we played around with that, and then we'd shoot it again without it. And, everybody had to kind of find where it was. And then I think we ended up with maybe it was the real gun. It was in there, and then we'd have to do it again without it. So then Ivan could, mat it back in.
So then Ivan in post did all of it.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Right.
The knife, some of the stuff where it's physical on the table, that was done
Sure.
with magnets
Right.
or wires, moving it. Ivan came up with a brilliant idea. I think it was Ivan, maybe it was Mark. If Mark Malosh was with us then, I think he might have been on one of the machines. To touch the eye,
Dude,
the tear.
That was such
yeah.
a great shot. I was waiting to get to that because that shot is so cool. So walk me through the plates for that shot. Like, what was the
That
plates?
was actually quite simple because it was just her eye. Everything else was digital. The tear was digital.
No.
Yeah, that's all digital. And what you don't realize is you're seeing the tear is there. It's welling in her eye. And as the knife blade, the tip of it just barely slowly touches it, and then it leaks.
Right.
That was a big surprise. I think Ivan hid that from us for a while. And then when it happened, it was like, because then that moment of realism.
Right. It took digital into real people
Yeah,
in a really cool way.
And it really messed, again, that's how many years ago. Nowadays, that would have been it would be a much more animated trickle.
And maybe
all
not
that.
as good.
Maybe. But
Because that worked. I can't imagine it working better than that.
No, man. I gotta ask detail. So the tear in her eye welling up, that's practical or that's also digital?
That's all digital.
So all you did was an incredibly ECU shot of her eyeball.
Yes.
Lock
and
off.
Then
ECU extreme close up.
I talk with Beth about, okay, now it's getting closer and you're taking a breath in, or just so she's more afraid, right? And her eye opens, maybe it opens up, just to give the actor some sense of what technically is, physically is happening. And
It's hurting my eyes right now. Literally, I can't even think about it.
it was so much fun to shoot all that. And we did a version. There's a version in one of the earlier cuts which is way more horrific than what is seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's I did all these shots knowing that there's the standards arm wrestling that we do, right? How much can you show and how much can't you show?
Right.
So the knife goes up, touches her eye. They were cool. Then it rears back a little bit, like you relax, and then he sends it forward.
Yeah.
And you see it go forward, just start to hit her. And then we cut to the wall on the backside of her head, and you see the blade go in to the wall.
Whoa.
And on the backside of that, I had another one which was looking, because it was like a pillar in the kitchen. And then I said, all right, what we need the blade to come all the way through. So the point of it sticking on the other side. That's how deep he sent it.
Right.
Ooh, right. So knowing full well that standards was going to have some issue here and there, we make it as overblown as we can, knowing that we'll pull it back some. I think that, it's more like, let's see what we can get away with.
Yeah.
But it was a lot more horrific in an early cut on that because we had all these other pieces to play.
But isn't that smart? Because then you're doing what you said. You're basically doing the Alfred Hitchcock trickery of we're gonna make you look at this thing over here, so you let us have this. Yeah,
I mean, you always want, being an editor for a long time, you always want the pieces to decide. If you don't shoot them, then you don't have that option later on. So
Right.
if you go, gosh, I wish I would have shot a close up,
Mm-hmm.
or the insert here of this might have been good storytelling.
Yeah.
You talk about. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you got some great guest stars in this. She was great, and
Beth,
Max was great. Is that what you were gonna say?
Exactly what I was going to say.
Wow.
Because they were so good.
Yeah.
You had great guest stars in this.
Yeah.
So how involved were you in
Yeah,
that process?
Do you remember that casting process?
Beth, I think, was cast out of L.A. Brandon Fletcher was in Vancouver.
Really, he's Canadian.
And he was really young. And, I think there's a part of me when I watch it now, I'm like, oh, it's him right away because he's so intense. But his story is interesting, and he is wonderful to work with. He was in a Terry Gilliam movie after that.
Really?
Yeah.
He's done a bunch of stuff,
He's done a bunch
man.
of stuff, yeah. But he was fantastic. And just, you give him, just between him and Jared, there's that scene later where the realization that, oh, your mom did that too?
Right.
Oh, wow. And your dad went crazy.
Right.
Cool. That scene was super fun to shoot because it was simple and you just relied on what the two actors were doing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, but
wonderful.
I think I want to shine a light on how great it is to get guest stars at that level because the show rises and falls on that support staff, really,
for
you
sure.
know?
For
And
sure.
that storyline, this is not just a one scene guy. This is a
No.
guy who comes in and the whole story revolves around
him, yeah.
his arc.
Mhm.
And, you have somebody do 1 or 2 scenes in an audition, you hope they're home run hitters on the day, and that's not always the case. And he sure as heck was.
No, but it's like casting you two on the show. It was
Uh-huh.
brilliant because you're good at what you do. You bring your A game and you also bring more. You think about character. You think about what this person or who this person is. And Brandon was, just the same. So was Beth, there was less to do with the uncle and the dad because they were kind of in it for other reasons.
Right.
But, it's your hope as a director to get that casting in the right spot because so much then is taken off your shoulders in so many ways. If you get an actor that comes in and you think they're one thing and they turn to be another thing, and part of it is they're nervous. It's a new show. There's certain things. Well, then you've got to spend more time fixing
Right.
or molding as opposed to more time playing. Because if you get somebody, like I can throw stuff to you guys easy, right? And it's super fun because you get the idea very quickly and then we riff. And once the riffing goes, that's when the magic can happen,
Right.
And I think that's what we get. And I think, Brendan did really good on that.
And Beth did too. You
Yeah,
mentioned Beth.
yeah.
Beth Broderick, who
Mhm.
plays Alice Miller, the stepmother. She doesn't have you're kind of watching her through the episode, and you're like, oh, she's doing a nice job.
Yeah.
She's got some stuff to do.
Yeah.
Not heavy lifting. Even when he confronts her, it's like okay. And then when she sits down with the cops and tells the story,
Yeah.
it's just lights out. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was wonderful. And again, same thing, you hope as a director when you're casting that person can bring to life the character and bring in other moods, colors, whatever you want to call it, that you didn't think about.
Mm-hmm.
There's always stuff in casting. I'm always amazed because now we're just into this video casting
Yeah.
that it's so much more like we were one of the very few shows in Vancouver, especially toward the later years, that was still going to casting. And
It's so much better.
there's so much you can you have somebody, you get a read on their body. I think we're keeping.
You okay, Rich?
I think that was a yawn. I
What
think,
a yawn.
Can we get some coffee for Rich?
I'm slamming my coffee.
I'm so sorry. I'll
Listen,
I'll try and brighten it up a little bit.
I need
for you.
you to be more like Ivan Hayden. No, but it's so much. It is better doing in-person casting.
that's
I think
great.
I think you miss a lot of the video casting and the in-person casting are not the same thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Oh, it's-
before I dozed off, you were saying that I think it's
I was
the
saying-
before and after. An actor walking in the room and an actor walking out of the room, the essence of that actor's being.
Yes.
You get more of that when you're
Right.
when you're in the room and you
Yes.
get the connection.
There's an
Sure.
energy too. There's
Sure.
an
Right.
energy.
Well, and also if you give them a direction, like you like what they did, but it wasn't right for the character,
Right.
and you just want to see how they change. If you give them 2 notes, do this with a smile,
Right.
or hide that you're angry. Don't anything that you give them. It's not that that's the way the scene's going to play. See, a lot of times the words that they're saying aren't in the script anyway. It's all fakery. But what you want to see is the actor in their brain, how they change, how they can manipulate the thought into action.
It's tough as an actor too now when you putting the tape out there and you're not even sure who's seeing it. if the right person are seeing you just kind of send it out into the ether and hope for the best. So yeah, it was great. They did great, and it makes a big difference. And the kid who played Max, I mean, we can't say enough about him, but I like as an actor too that he took his time, which is really hard with a guest star like this. You kind of want to you're nervous. You don't want to come in there and take too much time, and he took his time with the emotion and let the beats fall and let there be space, and it just goes a long way to...
And everything he had was emotional. I mean, the first time you see him is his lost his dad.
Yeah.
Like, he never has a joking around in the bar sequence and then things go sour.
But you knew it was him.
I didn't.
I didn't know until you came in here and told us it was him. It was him.
Really?
No, I really didn't.
Even after watching.
No, I really didn't.
I missed something there.
I just thought maybe he needed to go outside and take a walk or have a glass of water. He looked so pale.
No, you didn't know it was him, though. Like, for real. I didn't know it was him.
I didn't know.
Because it made sense that he's very upset. His dad just committed suicide. So I was buying that completely.
Yeah, and I didn't think telekinesis was coming into play. But sure enough.
Or child beating.
Yeah.
Man, not only like the beating by dad, but when the dad got a sore wrist, Uncle took over. Like, it was brutal.
Yeah, it was a game
brutal.
between the brothers.
That's not fun.
Who can hit the kid harder, I guess.
Oh, God. So there's also great emotional stuff with the brothers, with Sam and Dean. Dean is the protector and Sam's confusion as to what's going on. Did they, at this point, I know you're still, everyone's still figuring it out, but at this point, it almost feels like that you're on a roll here as a show. Did it feel that way?
Well, this was my first directing of the show, so I was a bit on pins and needles for myself. It's like, I can't mess this up. But I felt like I knew what the show was. I was in all the editing. So, I'm sitting there with Eric and Bob in the cutting room, throwing out ideas and getting the flavor of the show. So it's not like I'm the guest director that doesn't know the show.
Right.
But, definitely everybody's feeling better by the time you hit the mid-season of the first year, that we got legs underneath it. It's still... the saving people, hunting things, the family business was in every teaser for the first 10 or 12 shows, maybe even more.
10 or 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, that became our thing in post, where we started calling it Shaving People Punting Things as a video love letter to the audience. But I think we were at a point where it was like, okay, this might be working. And, I just tried to fit in with what Kim and what Bob had done. They were mentors for me, both of them, very much so. And it was Kim's idea. He had a great idea for the car at the beginning. He says, we should get a cutout car. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, they've cut out the front of the engine. And so we can get the camera underneath the dash. And that's where you see like the keys, all those cool shots underneath. That was because Kim. He said, let's see if we can get a secondary car that matches that car. Right. It has no engine. It has no front end. Basically, it sits on blocks. The guy sits in there. I'm sure there was some disparity here and there, but for the most part, Jeff, our picture car guy, he knew exactly what Kim was looking for, and he said, yeah, I got one of those.
Wow.
So
have you heard of that before? A cutout car?
No.
Well, we actually had a cutout Impala that was in 5 pieces, and we tried using it a few times. The problem is that, like the whole front end comes off. So now you can put the camera like right at the windshield, not floating. You could put it in a position that you can't normally put.
But you couldn't move the car though at that point.
Well, it was poor man's. If it was poor man's, you could do that.
Right.
And then we had it where the back end this whole car it was clamped together. And we only used it a couple times. It's too bad because it was so cool to get the camera where you normally couldn't do it.
Right.
You could get it right on the back window or inside the back window, from the back seat, and shoot forward a little bit low if you wanted. So, the cutout car thing wasn't a new thing, but it wasn't something, because the guy has to, have, he's dying of inhalation of gas fumes and exhaust in the teaser. But that was Kim came up with that idea, and he made it sound so simple. I was like always looking at him like, bastard, you know so much. And he was so kind and giving. He's not like, that's my idea, I'm going to keep it. He was very much to make the show better. It was always that.
So circling back to the boys' drama in this episode, one of the things I think is interesting, Benedict, you and I haven't talked about it at all, is that the drama is not just drama about let's find dad. It now becomes about Sam having cerebral issues, right? And Dean's legit concern.
Right, but trying to mask his concern.
Correct. So that was interesting, and that's sort of a whole new chapter for Sam about his abilities. I guess one of my questions is, was this part of Eric's big picture plan to drop this in this episode?
Well, it opens up the world to oh, wait a minute, what happened to Sam and the Winchesters happened to this family. So does that opens up what happened in the pilot to a whole nother world, that it widens it, because now it's like, oh, there's this unseen force that's doing this to little kids,
Right.
that's giving them powers of some sort, because
what the hell?
this all turns into something that Sam has for a while.
And there's so many arguments for years and years and years that people always debate John Winchester being a bad father. And it's just always talked about because the boys were raised in motels or on their own. There'll be flashbacks in seasons to come where they're little boys and they're by themselves a lot. But then you look at this episode and they even make the comment, well, we didn't have it so bad because this kid's dad, Max's dad, sees this happen and becomes a drunk who beats his son.
Right.
So at least John Winchester took his anger outward and not inward.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a backstory there with the Winchesters that we find out were more involved in supernatural things later on. As we know, Mr. Ackles is producing a prequel, if you will, that's in the same name.
I don't want to jinx it, but I'm reading for young John Winchester. I'm very excited about my chances.
Good luck.
Hey, good luck to you, Rob, in your reading of Mary.
That's
young
right.
John. So anyway, I think in this episode particular, because of Max's similarity to what happened to Sam, that when they say it, Dean thinks, I always recall that Dean's memories of his childhood was good stuff because they got to go to motels and there was mini bars and there was, stuff to mess with and do. Whereas Sam was way more, he was younger when it happened, when mom burned on the ceiling. He probably doesn't remember much of that, but it's one of those things that's why Sam left and went to college, was that he didn't get along with dad. His childhood was not. And I think it's coming apparent starts in a few episodes, I think before this, where Sam starts having these visions. And then this is a continuation of that. And, their childhood wasn't great in Sam's eyes.
Right.
It was in Dean's because, Dean looked up to his dad.
Right.
The car was, the music, the cleaning of the guns. I always had Dean, especially in the early episodes that I did, where I always gave him a task. Like, Dad was a Marine. One thing you do is you keep your weaponry clean and oiled and all that. So I always threw the guns on the bed, and I had Jensen. At one point, I said, you can't look at the guns while you're cleaning them. So you need to do all this as if it's
something you do, just in your
something
sleep.
you do, like playing a guitar for a million years. You don't look at your fingers. So that was always fun to do, especially in this. There's one scene in the motel room where Dean's doing that.
Yeah.
And there's a couple times where he's just like putting together the things. And
No, I had the thought, I was like, wow, does Jensen know how to clean a gun? Because
That's cool.
Well,
cool
it was
detail.
it was a couple details like that. I always had them park the car backward, so it was like they could get out quickly. Because that's always a thing, right? They always need to leave quickly. So if they're backed in, but that all kind of goes sideways, I'm sure, later on. But there was always that sort of thing. It's like, what would Dad do? That's
I don't know, man, because you were sort of the mentor for most of the new directors who would come in, myself being one of them. But I know that also Amin, Calderali, and some other people, and all that stuff was beaten into us. So that when like Cohen, when Matt Cohen was directing his first one, and he came to me, there are a lot of things that you would impart to new directors. Go like, okay, Sam and Dean walk into rooms. They're a hunter. How do hunters enter a room?
Right, yeah.
How do hunters drive into a place they've never been? Do they leave the headlights on? Do they turn the headlights off?
Yeah.
Like all these things that if you just see the line, Sam and Dean pull up to the house, you don't think about. So you have to dissect it and start thinking like, how do hunters behave in these situations, in all situations?
Right.
So in season 15, episode 15, where Matt comes in, like, you kind of got to know, you got to do your homework.
Yeah.
And a lot of homework to do.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of catching up to do if you're not familiar with the details of what these guys are in for. But same, because I didn't come in as a director until season 11. Plenty of ground trod by then. But to your point, the car backing in, I think those things did survive. I think those level of details, they became things that once it was established, the camera department, the transport department, people would mention like, nah, we gotta. They don't park in motels,
Dirty up
head
the
in.
car.
Kind of,
Well, also, like, the camera guys always had the car pristine. And I'm like, go take it to a muddy road and just go drive around and get it muddy. I said, these guys don't have time to clean the car. Especially at the beginning. It's a road movie. So everything is, they're on the road. and they're at a motel. And so it was so much fun working with the art department, Jerry, about the design of the next, because that was like the calling card of the show for many, many years of, where are we in the world? And then what type of motel room is it? And this was the Escanaba log cabin one, in this episode. That was quite fun.
There's a set of the houses whenever they're in, not the house in this one, but in some of them, there's a set of a house, especially when it's like a downtrodden kind of house. And I'm always like, oh, that's Chuck's house in season 4. Like all the houses have similar vibes, But that was our only set. I mean, those are our only sets, is the houses, the hotel room, motel room.
Until Men of Letters, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And Bobby Singer's was the home set for a long time too. So that became Jim Beaver's place, the salvage yard house.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to him.
Yeah, man. Jimmy the Bee Beaver.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Well, it's really exciting to watch an episode like this because as someone who's never seen the show, it sets up a lot of stuff, and to meet someone else whose mother died on the ceiling in a fire, and
so interesting,
kind of mind blowing,
and to see the beginning of the reign of directing excellence that was the Phil Sgriccia years. It's awesome. I mean, your episodes are always great, and I'm truly saying that to you as somebody who's watched every single episode that you've ever directed of Supernatural.
No, really?
Yeah, well, when I got hired to direct, I went back and I watched directors by groups. I watched all yours, all Bob's, all John Showalter's, and all Tom Wright's. And yours are just always just unbelievably detailed and cool.
So detailed and great, yeah.
Thank you.
You're going to do well, young man. Stick with it.
We try.
Keep at it. So season 1, is it now after this episode, do you go back to editing?
Yeah, I mean, after I'm done, go back down to here in LA and, continue with watching the cuts and giving ideas.
Right.
I'm on the mix stage and, Todd is running post. I'm more in the creative story side of it.
Right.
And so that's why Bob asked me on board, I think. And we worked well together for so many years, and it was turning into the same thing with Eric. So it was that, and then after that one, they gave me a second one in the first season, so that was always a plus.
A win,
so,
And that's all she wrote. The rest was downhill.
Yeah, downhill. Yeah, all the way to Ghostfacers.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for.
Am I done?
For coming on. You're done.
You can now have access to the snacks. Thank you for being here. Truly, you're you're the coolest, man.
Yeah.
So we love having you on here.
Yeah.
You know a lot, and you're good at sharing it. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys, for putting up with me.
You'll be back.
You'll be back.
Oh, you'll be back.
Here we go.
Hey there, this is Jared Padalecki, and I hope you're enjoying the episode. But we got to pull over for a second for some messages. Thanks for listening. Now, back to the episode.
Phil, what can I say?
I mean, he's the best.
He's the best. He's always a hoot.
Yeah, he'll be back. We'll have him back again. And I'd forgotten, because I don't do my homework, that this was his first directing episode.
First ever directing Supernatural.
Because he'd been on our show before.
Yeah, I know, but as an executive producer, but this is the first time he got behind the camera.
That's the thing.
Directed
I said this to you the other day, I think, but that's what's crazy is we're doing this podcast, watching the show in real time, and we're on episode
14.
Right, 14 of the podcast, and I can't remember what we did a few episodes ago. I can only imagine what it is to be, Jensen and Jared doing 327 episodes of a show.
While being hot.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Think that's somehow like a real cut down to me, isn't it? True, same as you, except they're hot. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if you noticed this, but I kind of lump myself in that same
I know, you always do.
Sack of potatoes. All right, that was a great experience. But now it's time for other parts of the podcast, parts that I like almost as much as the interview, starting with mythology.
All right, psychokinesis or telekinesis is the psychic ability allowing a person to move objects or influence the physical world with their mind.
I'm doing it now.
My microphone just flew away from me. The word is derived from the Greek words for mind and motion.
I knew that already.
That's not telekinesis. That's just being a smartass.
Telekinesis.
Clairvoyant or psychic, having premonitions or the ability to see what will happen before it happens.
I knew you were going to say that.
I didn't know you were so gifted. There have been formal studies about the connection between childhood trauma and extrasensory abilities, including extrasensory perception experiences and childhood trauma, a Rorschach investigation.
That title just rolls off the tongue, by the way.
It really does.
A+ marketing department.
What was this other one called?
Negative experiences in childhood, parental style, and resilience among people reporting paranormal experiences. Another, is the book
Just brutal.
all there in the title?
I mean, why can't they have just said, like,
Christ.
crazy people?
I don't need to read the book
things?
now. I've read the title. I know everything I need to know.
Both of those have been published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease.
They need to be published in the journal of the titles are too freaking long. Now nobody cares anymore.
By the way, my biography is going to be called the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease.
Dude, both have been published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease, otherwise known as Rob's Diary.
Oh, man. Other pop culture characters who suffered childhood abuse and developed telekinesis. 11 from Stranger Things.
12 from Stephen King's Carrie.
No, just Carrie from Stephen King's Carrie.
I thought we were just starting out numbers.
We're naming things starting with 11. 11 from Stranger Things, Carrie from Stephen King's Carrie, and
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda?
Damaged I was.
No, Baby Yoda doesn't speak like that.
Hurt me, Mom and Dad
He
did.
doesn't talk like that. He's just,
Ignored. I was.
He's just a baby.
Oh, right.
But it's a good point.
Geeble, gobble, geeble.
Yeah, sure. But he does have telekinesis. He does. Ask him.
Telekin ask him?
Telekin ask him. And now it's time for Fun Facts.
Hey, I'm laughing already. Fun facts.
Sam and Dean introduced themselves as Father Simmons and Father Fraley. Who are they? What is that reference from?
They're from Kiss.
That's right.
They are Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley.
Yeah, the bassist and guitarist from Kiss.
Dean grabbing a cocktail sausage and eating it made Rob uncomfortable.
No.
Oh.
It's not what it says. And it's not true.
Sorry. Dean grabbing a cocktail sausage and eating it made Rob incredibly comfortable.
No, that's not.
Oh,
no.
okay. Well, Dean grabbing a cocktail sausage and eating it was improvised. It's just one of those things that happens on a set when you get a guy like Jensen who loves sausage.
And Dean's eating and evolves into a runner of the show. Dean likes to eat. But yeah, that was improvised. He saw the sausage and he was like,
Keep his hands off it.
that's right. All right, Brendan Fletcher, who played Max, went on to act in some great projects. We talked about this. But,
Oh, man, he's so good.
yeah, but specifically, he was on 7 episodes of Arrow,
He did 13 episodes of Siren.
3 episodes of iZombie, and 11 on Stranger Things.
He did. He did a bunch of stuff. He's really good, man. Look him up, IMDb, that kid. We're calling him kid. He's probably,
Our age.
35. But anyway, he's a really
And he's
talented
great.
guy.
He was really great. Did a just killer job in this episode.
Podcast wrap up. Did I like the show? Well, I guess I'll tell a friend.
No, that's not what that means. What that means is, hey, do you like our podcast? Thank you so much for listening, and please tell your friends.
Tell your friends and tell strangers. I mean, I don't
Tell
know why we're
strangers.
limiting it to tell a friend.
That's true.
It's about getting the word out. You don't have to know them. Just tell them.
Just tell them. Just tell them.
A lot of times I'll tell my children, don't talk to strangers unless it's promoting the podcast.
Right.
In which case, talk to them.
Or if you have telekinesis, you can, with your mind, make more people listen.
I'm moving you towards your radio, which is not where podcasts are. So that's
No,
pointless.
now I'm turning off your radio and opening your podcast app. Anyway, thanks again for listening. This was a fun one,
That was a great one.
and we'll see you for the next one. Bye, everybody. Jared Padalecki stars as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester,
Co-stars include Brendan Fletcher as Max Miller, Cameron McDonald as Jim Miller.
Beth Broderick as Alice Miller, and Avery Raskin as Roger Miller.
Roger Miller, by the way, trailers for sale or rent, rooms to let, 50
right.
cents.
That's right.
Who knew that Roger Miller was being portrayed in Supernatural? Great songwriter. Nightmare was written by Sarah Gamble and Rael Tucker.
And directed by Phil Sgriccia.
Edited by Paul Karasik.
Music by Christopher Lennertz.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
The original broadcast featured 2 great songs by Bob Seger, 2+2 and Lucifer. The Netflix broadcast featured neither of those songs.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was the original broadcast featured 2 great songs by Bob Seger, 2+2 and X-5?
That's right.
They're both equations.
Over N squared. This episode originally aired February 7th, 2006.
The day after my sister Barbie's birthday.
This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Spade Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine, written by Stephen Hine and Haida Holscher.
Audio engineered by Caitlin Holly.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty.
What's up, booty? Music provided by Tim Wynn.
The episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
For news on this and other podcasts, But why would you care about other podcasts? I'm kidding. Follow Story Mill Media on Instagram and Twitter. That was great, Phil.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought for sure this one was going to suck.
The original broadcast featured 2 great songs by Bob Seger. 2 plus 2 equals question mark?
Somehow I don't think that's the title.
All right, well, both of those have been published in the Journal of Nervous and...
First of all, I think Steve's making up crap and typing it on a sheet of paper and handing it to us. There's just no way there's a rock song called 2 plus 2 equals question.
This is my next song. It's called 2 plus 2 equals question mark.
The episode was bad.
Max has abilities just like Sam, but his are further developed.
Meaning he has great hair and sort of a way of...
Yeah, he has really long hair and he's 6'4".
Let me try that again. Steve, you have a question?
Steve has a question?
Phil, just keep an eye on this.
What am I doing? Oh.
This handrest.
Keep your hands to yourself, Phil.
Wow.
Sorry.
Phil got in trouble with the boss.
Steve, the producer, is like our resident nun
Okay.
at the Catholic school. He's got a ruler out. He's going to smack Phil. Right? It's just nobody would make a song called 2 plus 2 equals question mark.
No.
That's what it is in the credits.
It is weird. Without further ado... Oh, wait, no.
What? If we've learned nothing else, it's that telekinesis should be a word.
The original broadcast featured 2 great songs by Bob Seger.
Not singer.
Bob.
Okay.
We got that, right?
Story Mill Media.